Hi, I'm John Simmons, and the following video is intended to help you understand suspension trauma and why it is important to rescue a suspended worker as quickly as possible. You will also see demonstrations of self-rescue from an arrested fall, as well as the evacuation of an inoperable aerial lift or elevated work platform. So then, what is suspension trauma or orthostatic intolerance? Orthostatic intolerance can occur anytime a person is required to stand quietly for prolonged periods and may be worsened by heat and dehydration. This happens when the legs are immobile with the worker in an upright posture. This is also called orthostatic incompetence. Here is what happens when the worker is suspended in an upright position. Gravity pulls blood into the lower legs, which have a larger storage capacity. Enough blood eventually accumulates, so the return blood flow to the heart is reduced. The heart can only pump the blood available, so the heart's output begins to fall, and the heart speeds up to maintain sufficient blood flow to the brain. Beating faster is ineffective, and the body abruptly slows the heart. In most instances, the body solves the problem by causing the worker to faint, which typically results in slumping to the ground where the legs, the heart, and the brain are on the same level. Blood is now returned to the heart, and the worker typically recovers quickly. In a harness, however, the worker cannot fall into a horizontal posture, so the reduced heart rate can cause the brain's blood supply to fall below the critical level. This is what causes suspension trauma, and here's how it happens. First, the worker is suspended in an upright posture, with the legs dangling. Second, the safety harness leg straps exert pressure on leg veins, compressing them and reducing blood flow back to the heart. Third, the harness keeps the worker in an upright position, regardless of loss of consciousness, which will eventually cause the heart to stop. So, what would you do if someone is suspended in the air for a prolonged period of time? In the event of an arrested fall, when a person may not be able to self-rescue, the following procedure should be used to help minimize further injury that can be associated with suspension trauma. As soon as the fall takes place, the company's work at height rescue plan should be put into immediate effect. Emergency services should be contacted if special attention is required. And if able to do so, the suspended worker should be encouraged to mobilize all four limbs, such as flexing the leg muscles, until they can be brought to a position of safety. Frequent pumping of the legs against a firm surface, if available, will also activate the muscles. This can help maintain the circulation until the worker is rescued. Once the suspended worker has been rescued, there are several steps that can be critical to surviving suspension trauma. If the worker is fully conscious and mobile, the first action when released from suspension should be to place them in a sitting position with their body upright and legs flat or bent at the knees. The worker must not be allowed to stand up, exercise, drink, or eat. Keep them as calm and relaxed as you can to help reduce the effects of stress on the heart. If the worker is unconscious or cannot maintain a seated position, they are best managed in an inclined position, at least 20 degrees, with the head at the highest point of the body. And steps should be taken to ensure their airway is open until emergency services are in attendance. Whether conscious or unconscious, the worker must be kept in this recovery position for at least 30 minutes. The blood pulled in the worker's legs may have reached a toxic level due to a process called anaerobic metabolism. The pooled blood starts off normal enough, with oxygen and nutrients dissolved in it. However, over time, cells in the lungs use up the oxygen and nutrients. When all the oxygen is used up, the cells start to burn fat. Toxic byproducts of this fat burning start to build up in trapped blood and can eventually reach dangerous levels. If the blood is allowed to rush back into the rest of the body, then these toxins and the lack of oxygen can cause very serious problems. The heart can stop, the liver, the kidneys, and the brain can be damaged, and in many cases, they can die. This can happen if the worker is allowed to lie flat. Any suspended worker, whether conscious or unconscious, must be transported to a medical facility following the rescue. The primary goal of self-rescue technique is to return the employee safely to the ground as quickly as possible. In the first example, we will demonstrate a self-rescue following an arrested fall for a worker who has been dumped from a bucket using the Para-Pak SR700XP. Your first action after an arrested fall should be to gain your composure and become aware of your surroundings. What hazards are nearby, such as conductors, wires, or obstructions. Next, you'll need to reach up and position the O-ring on your lanyard. Then grasp and remove the carabiner from the rescue pack attached to your harness. Make sure the descent device and the ladder are deployed. Then reach up and make the first connection at the O-ring. Double check that it is locked in place. Next, connect the carabiner into the front rescue loop or rappel loops on the front of your harness and double check that it is locked. Step into the orange ladder to help relieve the suspension trauma. Now you can rest and either wait for assistance or regain your composure and continue to the next step when ready. Climb up the ladder until you have slack between the harness, pigtail, and the snap hook on the lanyard. Reach around the lanyard and depress the double locking snap hook with one hand. With the other hand, grasp the 6-inch pigtail just behind the D-ring. With the snap hook latch depressed and open, and the pigtail grasp, simply pull your hands together and unlatch the pigtail from the lanyard. Maintain a grasp on the lanyard to keep from falling into the rescue device. Step down into the ladder to transfer your weight into the rescue device. Once your weight is supported by the rescue device, you may pause since the harness now acts like a bosun chair. Your suspension trauma is relieved, and you are out of danger. At this point, you may either wait or call for help or rest before continuing. If you are ready to descend, you will need to pull extra rope for the rescue system. Gently squeeze the red lever on the descent device while keeping a hand on the yellow descent line. Let the yellow descent line slowly pass through the descent device while keeping it in a horizontal position. Control your rate of descent by keeping light pressure on the yellow line. Release the red lever to stop your descent. Gloves are recommended for hand protection. Continue your descent by feeding line from the rescue pack. Once you're on the ground, remain standing and unhook the descent device from the front rescue loop on the harness. At this point, follow your company's recovery procedures for a suspension trauma. Next, we will demonstrate how to self-rescue from a stranded aerial platform using Para-Pak SR700XP. Plan a route of descent, which is away from any obstruction, such as a phase, pole, or secondary. Remove the direction-altering device, or the DAD, from the yellow storage bag, which is hanging on a hook inside the bucket. Place the DAD on the bucket lip and clamp it down to facilitate your chosen path for descent. Buckets vary. Make sure your DAD device is clamped tightly. Next, remove the rescue system from the pack attached to your harness. You will not need the ladder, so grasp the top carabiner. Depress the snap hook and remove the ladder. Then connect the carabiner attached to the yellow descent line into the approved lanyard anchor point and verify connection. Now connect the Captivite carabiner on the descent device into the front rescue loop or rappel loops on your full body harness. Verify both connections before continuing. Feed enough slack into the system to reach your chosen path for descent. Place the black protective cover in the yellow line at the location of the DAD device pivot point. Avoid feeding too much slack because this may make the initial descent out of the bucket more difficult. At this point, you can detach your lanyard from the anchor point attachment. Note that both ends can be detached if you prefer. Climb over the edge of the bucket at your chosen path for descent. If possible, utilize the built-in step. Either take up or let out slack in the system to slowly allow all your body weight to be supported by the rescue device. Another method is to step over the bucket edge and slowly lower yourself while hanging onto the bucket edge with your hands until the slack is removed. Once your weight is fully supported by the rescue device, you may pause since the harness now acts like a bosun chair. When you are ready to descend, you will need to pull extra line from the rescue system. Gently squeeze the red lever on the descent device while keeping a hand on the yellow descent line. Let the yellow descent line slowly pass through the descent device while keeping it in a horizontal position. Control your rate of descent by keeping light pressure on the yellow line. Release the red lever to stop your descent. Gloves are recommended for hand protection. Remember to continue helping your descent by feeding line from the rescue pack. Once you're on the ground, remain standing. Now, simply unhook the descent device from the rescue loop on the harness. We hope you find the information in this video informative and helpful, and please continue to work safely. Please contact Bashlin Industries with any questions regarding these products.